Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take your sources, peel back the layers, and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge. Our mission today: cut through the noise, give you a shortcut to being truly well informed, maybe with some surprising facts, and hopefully just enough humor to keep you hooked. Today, we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating material excerpts from a book called The 48 Laws of Power. Now, let's be clear up front. This isn't about us endorsing any particular philosophy here or, telling you how to live. Instead, we're just trying to extract insights into the raw dynamics of power, human nature, strategy, all as it's presented in this, well, widely discussed work. We're talking about observations on how people operate, both in the past and maybe even today.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is how the source material pulls together all these historical anecdotes and principles from, different centuries, different cultures. And it presents them as these sort of timeless tools for understanding influence. It gives you a very particular lens to view human interactions through. Our goal is just to lay out these ideas, help you connect the dots a bit, and then, well, let you decide what resonates, what stands out to you based on what you see.
Okay. So if you're ready to explore the maybe surprising power of appearance, the subtle dance of strategic influence, and the critical importance of timing, let's get into it. Okay, first big idea. We often think actions speak loudest, right? But according to our source, how you're perceived, that's maybe the real currency of power. Let's start by looking at how appearances can shape reality and why cultivating a certain image seems so important, according to this book.
Exactly. Law 6, it's called court attention at all cost. And it basically says everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. The core idea, don't get lost in the crowd. You need to be conspicuous, make yourself a magnet for attention. It's about recognizing that visibility, well, it often equals influence.
Okay, that makes sense in theory, maybe. But how do you actually become a magnet of attention without just being, obnoxious?
Well, the book offers specific strategies. Look at P.T. Barnum, the 19th century showman. He deliberately created a stir. He even appeared as this infamous Reverend Ephraim K. Avery just to generate notoriety.
Really? He pretended to be someone else.
Yeah, he understood that any spotlight, even like a controversial one, could bring power. He even revealed some of his deceptions later in his autobiography, kind of playing into that idea that Kierkegaard wrote about the world wants to be deceived.
Ah.
And building on that, the text gets into this really interesting idea of cultivating an air of mystery. Think about the con artist Count Lustig. He made himself seem like this mysterious aristocrat, so everyone in the hotel was buzzing, right? Desperate for his confidence. And this distraction meant they didn't even notice he was robbing them blind.
Wow. So the mystery itself was the tool.
Exactly. It's a powerful lesson in how an intriguing, kind of undefined persona can elevate the mediocre. Like Mata Hari, her average looks became goddess-like through mystique. Or Marcel Duchamp, making ordinary objects into intriguing art.
So the key insight here isn't just about looking good, it's about crafting an illusion, like an effortless excellence, which connects perfectly to Law 30, right? Make your accomplishments seem effortless.
All right, the book explains that if you reveal the blood and toil behind what you did, you just become, well, another mortal, ordinary. The magic is in the unseen labor.
So you hide the hard work.
Kind of. The example of Sen no Rikyu, the tea master, is really telling. Before Hideyoshi arrived, Rikyu subtly cleared just enough snow from the stepping stones in his garden. So Hideyoshi marvels at this simple, pristine beauty of the clear stones, completely unaware of the calculation, the effort Rikyu put in.
Ah, I see. The magic is in making it look natural, accidental even.
That's it. The real takeaway is that true mastery often lies in, well, the art of concealment. The less people see you sweat, the more powerful your actions appear.
That's a fascinating thought. And maybe a bit unsettling for today's world, with everyone talking about grind culture and being authentic and transparent. Do you think this focus on appearing effortless could backfire now? Make someone seem, I don't know, fake or even lazy?
That's a really crucial question. The source seems to imply that, yeah, while some transparency might be expected today, the perception of effortlessness isn't really about laziness. It's more about projecting competence, control. The risk of seeming inauthentic is definitely there, especially if the illusion is, too obvious. But the book argues that skillful application makes you seem almost godlike, inspiring awe, not suspicion. It's about managing the story around your abilities.
Managing the narrative. Okay, so from managing perceptions, let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about getting others to do what you want. A common instinct might be, appeal to kindness, ask nicely. But Law 13 suggests something pretty counterintuitive. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude.
Right. If we step back and look at the bigger picture, this law highlights a really pragmatic view of human motivation, maybe even cynical. The text argues that reminding allies of, hey, remember that time I helped you? It just won't work reliably.
So forget favors.
Pretty much. Instead, you have to figure out and emphasize what they stand to gain. Right now, think about Athens. They were approached by both Corcyra and Corinth for help. Who did they side with?
Courtier, right?
Yeah, Corcyra. Not because of shared history or sentiment, but because Corcyra offered a clear, practical advantage. It added to Athenian power. They ignored Corinth's appeals to the past. Or Yeluchitai convincing Genghis Khan not to destroy Chinese culture. How? Not by begging for mercy. No, he argued the Chinese could be taxed, which meant immense wealth for the Mongols. It was all about their self-interest.
But there's a subtle twist here too, isn't there? The source does say that not everyone is only driven by, like, pure cynical self-interest.
That's true. It acknowledges that some people also need opportunities to display their good heart, to look good.
Like Joseph Duveen, the art dealer. He was
Yeah.
apparently a master at this.
Exactly. He got Andrew Mellon to donate his huge collection to create the National Gallery of Art.
Right, which helped Mellon avoid taxes, sure. But it also let him create this grand public display of generosity, made him look like a great philanthropist, secured his legacy.
It seems the best strategies often appeal to multiple layers of self-interest, maybe even hidden ones, like vanity or legacy.
That leads perfectly into Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim.
Yeah, this one's tricky. One sincere, open-hearted gesture. Presented like a Trojan horse gift, the book says. It can lower the guard of even the most suspicious person. Opens them up for manipulation later.
Even the Capones of the world, it claims.
Right. The surprise of an unexpected kindness can be incredibly powerful. Disarming.
And the flip side, the reversal, is crucial too. If you already have a reputation for being deceitful, suddenly being honest, that just looks suspicious.
Totally. In that case, the book says it's better to just play the rogue, own it.
Like Count Lustig again, selling the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. That's just audacious.
It really is. And his Mark, this Monsieur P, he never went to the police. Why? Because he'd look like an idiot. The damage to his own reputation was too great.
Protecting his own image. It all comes back to appearance again.
It often does. And this is why Law 40, Despise the Free Lunch, warns that anything offered for free usually involves a trick, a hidden obligation, something.
Like Gonzalo Pizarro's search for El Dorado.
Exactly. Chasing free gold based on stories invented by tortured Indians. It illustrates the danger perfectly.
So next time someone offers you something that seems way too good to be true.
Yeah, remember Pizarro and El Dorado? That free gold might just lead you down a very expensive and very pointless rabbit hole.
Good advice. And beyond these more subtle tactics, the book is pretty blunt about other ways to leverage people. Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit.
Oof. Yeah, pretty direct.
And Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy, emphasizing how important it is to gather intelligence on rivals.
It's definitely a pragmatic, maybe even stark view of how interactions can work.
Okay, so we've talked about managing perceptions, strategically using others. What about protecting yourself, positioning yourself in the world? A common instinct might be to isolate yourself, right? Build walls for protection. But Law 18 says the opposite. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
Yeah, this one really makes you think about perceived safety versus actual vulnerability. Look at China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi. Became maybe the mightiest man of his day, but in his later years, what did he do? He isolated himself in his palace. And slowly he lost control of his realm, became an easy target for plots.
So hiding away didn't protect him.
Nope, made him weaker. Contrast that with Louis XIV. He used Versailles not just as, a fancy palace. It was a strategic tool to keep the nobility close, under his watchful eye, prevented isolation, prevented conspiracies.
So being in the crowd is actually safer.
The text suggests you're actually shielded from your enemies by the crowd. Being in the thick of things, paradoxically, can offer more protection, get more information, too.
That's a powerful counterintuitive idea. Okay, so if you're out there, in the mix, what about the challenge of following someone really impressive, like a great leader or artist? Law 41 warns, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. It says, what comes first always seems better, more original.
Yeah, this concept really hammers home the importance of creating your own legacy. If you succeed someone great, the book argues, you basically have to accomplish double what they did just to outshine them. It's a tough spot.
So what's the advice?
Establish your own name. Change course. Don't just try to be a copy. You have to metaphorically slay the overbearing father.
Like Louis XV, he inherited Louis XIV's strong foundation.
And totally squandered it.
Yeah.
Led to that famous motto, Après moi le déluge. After me, the flood.
Why?
The book suggests he lacked the necessity, the drive, that pushed his predecessor. He didn't need to build it from scratch.
Whereas someone like Solomon.
Right, Solomon wisely yielded the warlike stuff to his father, David. He found it easier to become a hero by changing course, focused on wisdom, building temples, creating his own brand, essentially.
And Napoleon III, nephew of the great Napoleon.
He used his uncle's legend, sure, but quickly showed how different his own reign would be. Focused on industry, social reforms, not just military conquest. It's about carving your own distinct path.
Okay, so you carve your own path, but then what? You start getting successful, and there's another trap waiting. Law of 46, never appear too perfect. This one feels important.
It really is. The warning here is stark. Perfection is dangerous because it creates envy. And this envy, the source says, can silently eat away at your support base. People resent feeling inferior.
So how do you manage that? You achieve things, but you don't want people to hate you for it.
Well, there are strategies. One is seeming unambitious, like Boris Godunov refusing the crown multiple times, or George Washington's feigned reluctance makes you seem less threatening.
Play humble.
Or admit small flaws. Or attribute some success to luck, makes others feel less, inadequate by comparison.
That makes sense. What about the Michelangelo and Bramante rivalry?
Ah, yeah, that's a great example. Bramante was envious of Michelangelo's sculpting fame, so he tried to sabotage him, basically. Got him the commission to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling, hoping it would ruin his reputation because painting wasn't his main thing.
Backfired spectacularly, though.
Massively. Michelangelo turned it into his most perfect work, which, ironically, just caused Bramante even greater envy. The book calls it the sweetest and most lasting revenge. But the underlying point, as Mencius said, men delight in being taught by no one. Don't make people feel like you're constantly showing them up.
Right. It's a delicate balance. Okay, all this maneuvering, all this strategy, it means nothing without good timing, right? Law 33, master the art of timing. Never seem like you're in a hurry. That betrays a lack of control.
Exactly. Instead, appear patient. Like everything will just naturally come to you eventually. You have to become a detective of the right moment.
A detective of the right moment. I like that.
And the text distinguishes between two types of time here. Long time and forced time.
Okay, what's the difference?
Long time is about patience, deep patience, seeing trends unfold, resisting that natural human urge to react immediately, emotionally. Cardinal de Retz, the 17th century Frenchman, is the example here. He analyzed how the French monarchy returned to Paris after a rebellion. Everyone felt relieved. The revolutionaries thought they were okay. But Retz saw that the slow, deliberate return allowed the king to regain control bit by bit. He played the long game.
And forced time.
That's about upsetting the timing of others, making them hurry, making them react off balance. Like Pancho Villa, he masterfully evaded the American military for months.
Wow.
By leading them over rough terrain, controlling the pace, exhausting them, demoralizing them, he forced their time.
So it's about controlling the clock, your own and sometimes your opponent's.
Courtier.
And finally, in this Roma strategy, Law 47 hits hard. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop.
This is a huge one. The warning is at the moment of victory. That's often the moment of greatest peril.
Why? You've won.
Arrogance. Overconfidence. The book warns they can push you too far. You end up creating more enemies than you just defeated. You overreach.
Okay, so sustainability of power is key.
Exactly. Think about Cyrus the Great. Built a massive empire, but it ultimately collapsed because he just kept conquering. Went past his initial goals, overextended everything.
Compared to someone like Madame de Pompadour.
Right. She succeeded where others failed because, the book says, she never pressed her good fortune. Once she had influence, she didn't bully courtiers or push too hard.
Machiavelli's advice comes to mind. Never try to obtain good for an uncertain better.
That's a perfect connection. But the reversal here is also critical. Sometimes if you have a truly bitter enemy...
I can't just win slightly.
No. The book says you might have to crush him into non-existence because a mild injury just breeds resentment and plots for revenge.
Harsh, but maybe realistic in some contexts. Like Sparta and Athens.
Yeah. Sparta defeated Athens. Victory. But then what happened? They grew weaker. Athenian culture influence that kind of broke down Sparta's rigid order from within. They eventually collapsed to Thebes.
So they won the battle but lost the war long term.
You could say that. It shows that victory needs careful consolidation, strategy, not just endless pursuit. You have to know when to stop pushing.
And to tie all of these strategic ideas together, maybe, Law 48, assume formlessness.
Yes. This one feels like the ultimate meta strategy. Be adaptable, fluid, don't commit to one fixed form or plan.
Like water.
Kind of. What's fascinating is how this flexibility acts as a protective mechanism. Mao Zedong used guerrilla tactics. Let the nationalists take cities. Seems like losing, right? But then he used that useless space, the countryside, to surround them, to encircle their armies when they tried to rescue the cities. His lack of fixed form, his fluidity, baffled them.
And the Japanese example, accepting foreign culture.
Yeah, they seemed susceptible to foreign cultures, adopted Portuguese clothing, customs. But this very adaptability actually protected them. It prevented the military imposition of alien cultures because Westerners were sort of seduced into thinking they were weak or easily influenced.
While Japan was actually strategically absorbing and adapting on its own terms.
Exactly. The big takeaway from Law 48 is that rigidity is weakness. In a world that's always changing, your ability to adapt, to pivot, to avoid being easily defined, that becomes your ultimate defense and maybe your ultimate advantage.
Okay, we've hit strategy hard. Let's turn inward for a moment. What about the internal game? Mastering your own emotions. The source makes a powerful case that this is maybe the most fundamental power play. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge.
This really gets to a core principle, maintaining control. The text argues pretty strongly that anger, frustration, showing emotion is almost always strategically counterproductive.
So stay calm no matter what.
Pretty much. If you can make your enemies angry while you stay perfectly calm, objectively assessing things, you gain a huge advantage. Think about Pietro Aretino, the Renaissance writer. He was slandered, accused of faking his aristocratic background. What did he do?
Ignored it.
Completely ignored it. And the slander just passed, faded away. If he defended himself, gotten angry, he would have just dragged himself down into the mud with his critics.
Yeah. The book puts it pretty bluntly, too, doesn't it?
Yeah. Kick him, he'll forgive you. Flatter him, he may or may not see through you. But ignore him and he'll hate you. Ignoring someone is presented as the ultimate power move, the ultimate dismissal.
That is a cold take on revenge, and maybe tough for people to actually do.
Oh, absolutely. It goes against natural instinct.
Yeah.
But you could see the strategic value play out. The text contrasts Napoleon, who famously lost his temper with Talleyrand, a huge political mistake, damaged his image, with Cao Cao, the Chinese warlord. He remained calm during a crisis, even finding out about disloyalty among his generals. He dealt with it later, strategically, to protect troop morale at the critical moment.
So the lesson is, don't take things personally, especially when power is involved.
That seems to be the core message. But you raised a good point earlier. Isn't there a risk of seeming completely unfeeling, detached, if you just ignore every personal attack?
Yeah, could that backfire too?
It's a great point. And I think the book isn't really advocating for being like a robot with no feelings. It's about control over your emotional displays. It's about not letting your emotions be weaponized against you by others.
Okay, so it's strategic emotional regulation.
Exactly. You choose your responses. Sometimes, as we talked about with selective honesty, showing vulnerability can be disarming. It can be a strategic choice. But the default setting, especially when you're provoked, according to the source, it should be calm objectivity. Don't let them get a rise out of you.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. A real deep dive into this world of power dynamics presented in the book. From courting attention, making things look effortless, to leveraging self-interest, mastering timing, controlling your emotions. These insights offer a really unique and, often challenging perspective on human behavior.
Indeed. And if we try to connect it all to the bigger picture, the source material basically suggests don't try to opt out of the game of power. It argues that would just render you powerless and miserable.
So you can't just ignore it.
Apparently not, according to this view. Instead, understanding these dynamics allows for a more, let's say, informed engagement with the world. It's about recognizing the patterns, the mechanisms you see at play, not necessarily about adopting every single law yourself.
Right. It gives you maybe a map or a lens to understand what might be motivating others or even yourself sometimes. And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. Consider the situations in your own life, professional, social, maybe even personal, Where have you felt either powerful or maybe powerless? What patterns have you observed that resonate, even slightly, with any of these laws we've discussed? And how might simply understanding these underlying dynamics, even if you don't act on them, change your approach to navigating those complex situations in the future? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging for those insights.